For those of you who are already here, welcome. This is Bristol Law Society and Quiss Technology's Microsoft SharePoint training webinar. We're delighted to have James Smith from Quiss with us. James is the training manager there and has been a dedicated member of Quiss Technology for 13 years. And we've had some sessions, some of you hopefully might have been to those previously on Teams and the Microsoft Substack recently, and so if you've joined us there, you'll know that he's fantastic at talking us through the capability and functionality of some of the kit that we have on our systems already that we are using to a greater or lesser degree. So I'm going to be handing over to James in a minute, just to say this is going to be recorded and it will be shared with you later. There is a Q&A function in the bottom. We've already had some questions which have been submitted prior to the session, so we will pick those up at the end of the session to the extent that James doesn't answer them as he goes along. But if there's anything as we go along you want to ask, please do pop it in the Q&A, and once James finishes his presentation and walk through the system, then we'll pick those questions up. And then if there's anything else on top of that at the end of it, we will certainly, when we send out the recording, we'll send you Quiss and James's details. So if you need any more support, then Quiss, who are in the IT services industry, have been around since 1988, expert in all of this, and particularly the legal sector as well. So they can assist you if we haven't been able to assist you on a particular thing today, or indeed you've got a broader issue that you would like to pick up with them. So I'm going to hand over to James. I'll put myself on mute and turn the video off. So hopefully, James, then you can launch your screen and just keep those questions coming in the Q&A. James, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Okay, good afternoon all. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so just a quick run through of the topics that we're going to be looking at today. So we'll have a look at just to make you aware the differences of SharePoint and OneDrive. We'll have a look at some file security features, file version control, something called tagging files, which in a recent update is now called enterprise keywords. We'll look at the ability to upload and download files, sharing files with other people, a little bit on collaborative working within SharePoint, how you can search for files within SharePoint. We'll have a little look at some automation rules and notifications, file approval workflows, and how you can sync your SharePoint content to File Explorer. And then finally, just covering off the difference between a team site and a communication site. So that there are two different sort of distinct types of SharePoint site. So just to make you aware, the differences between SharePoint and OneDrive. OneDrive, albeit it is cloud-based file storage, OneDrive is for your personal documents. SharePoint would be for a team, an organization, a department. So SharePoint would be for sharing and collaborating on files. OneDrive would be your own personal files, although you can share with other people from OneDrive, but the default setting of it is OneDrive is things that only you can see. SharePoint is things that are shared among different people. So we'll have a little look at file security. So I'm on my SharePoint homepage. So on this left-hand side, it tells me I'm following several different SharePoint sites. It shows me recent sites that I've been into. And I'm going to use this Quiss demo team SharePoint site. So I'll just open this up. So once I open it up, navigation's on this left-hand side. So this is a team site. So this is for collaborating with other people. So I'm going to go into documents. And within my documents, so as far as file security is concerned, within SharePoint, up in the top right corner, it tells me currently there are 4 members of this SharePoint site. So these 4 members, Sabrina Griffin, myself, Amanda Dawson, Rebecca, and Andy Hawley, we are the only people who not only who can access this, we are the only people who can see that this site even exists. So it's a major difference with file security within SharePoint. If you don't have permission to something, you don't see it. Now, you can be very granular with permissions. So this is at the very top level. There are 4 members, or there's 4 people who can access this entire site. In my documents, now, documents, SharePoint terminology, documents sit in what's called a document library. Within your library, you then have folders. Now, I've also got this option for in channels. So just to make you aware, this is a team site. So on the front end of this SharePoint site is a Microsoft team. Within the team, there are channels. So if I expand out the channels, this will show me these are the names of the channels in my team, and that I can see the files that are stored in them. In my site library, I've got all of those, plus I've got some additional folders, and I've got some files that are just saved at the root. So all 4 members of the team can access everything within here. Now, just to make you aware, if I go up to members again. So Sabrina is a member. I'm an owner. Amanda, Rebecca, and Andy are members. Within SharePoint, you can also have multiple levels of permission. So as an owner of this site, I have full control of everything. I can create things, I can delete them, I can change them. Effectively, I can do anything that I want. Members, depending on your configuration, will have slightly different permissions. There is another default level, which is called visitors. So if you set somebody up as a visitor to your site, they have read-only access. Members generally can edit things, but again, all of these can be configured to suit. But as a main point, an owner effectively has got full control over everything. Members generally have limited control. Visitors have no control. They can only view the content. So, and you can be quite granular with this. So this is at the whole site level. If I go into a folder and browsing through SharePoint, you just single click onto the name. I go into general. Within here, I've got some subfolders and a few documents and an image. So I'll go into this Excel files folder. So when I say that you can be granular as to who can have access to files, for example, if I use this pivot table. So click onto the little select, and there's a series of links across the top. I can open it, I can share it, I can copy a link to it, I can delete it. One just for information, I can pin it to the top. So if I'd got dozens of files in here, but this one I work on a lot, I could pin it to the top. So it's always quickly accessible. I can then go and edit the pin and I can unpin it. Synchronizing, I will come back to. I can add a shortcut to it in my OneDrive. I can download it. I can export it out to Excel. Under the 3 little dots, I've also got some options for automations and alerts. But for the security of it, under the 3 dots, I can manage access to this particular file. So in this case, it tells me David Ricketts has got access to it. He can view it. Rebecca can edit it. Amanda can edit it. Sabrina can edit it. So there are 4 people with access. There are 4 groups. So team owners, team visitors, team members. And there's 1 link that has been used to share this file. So within people, I might decide, actually, I can come in and I can change what they can do with it. So people in my can view it. Nobody's got direct access, so they can't access it externally. So you can change the permissions on a folder or on an individual file. So if I go back up, I choose the folder, I can go into the three dots. I can manage the access to it. And again, I can choose who it's being shared with. I can grant access to it. So I could share it with another person. So it is one to be careful of when you're setting up SharePoint sites. Your initial setup would be you would have an owner and an admin who control the whole site. Then you would have your members, but you can then specify whether members have got read-only access to certain folders if it's sensitive information. You can even remove people's access. So if this was a company-wide SharePoint site, there may be folders within here that have got, for example, financial information. I don't want the whole company to just come into here, go in a financial information folder and find a spreadsheet of everybody's salary details. So it is one to be aware of. At the top level, it's who's got access to the site, but you can then be much more granular as you go down as to who's got access to individual folders or even individual files within those folders. But as I say, important thing to note is if you haven't got permission to even view anything, you won't see it. Okay. So I'm going to have a look at version control. So if I go into my general, and I'm going to use this Excel files. So within here, I've got the name of the file, when it was modified. It also, by default, is telling me what version it is, tells me when it was created. So with version control, you've got several different options of how you can use it. So I'm just going to go back up to the very top level, and depending on your permissions as to whether you can do this, but I'm going to go into it so that you can see the options. Under settings and library settings. So if I go into more library settings, so in here, I've got options over on this left-hand side for versioning settings. I open this up. So with versioning settings, on this right-hand side, I can control, do I require content approval for submitted items? This is, if somebody creates a new file or somebody saves something into this library, I can set it to say it needs to be approved by somebody before it becomes visible to everybody else in the team. Now, you can set it at a library level. You can also set it at a folder level. So I'm going to switch this on. I'm going to say, yes, you do need approval. Then we've got options for, do we create a version every time somebody edits a file in this library? And if so, are we creating major versions? Or are we creating major and minor draft versions? So we could have major versions, it's just version 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time someone makes an edit, the version number will increment. Or we can have minor or draft versions. So we could have version 1.1, 1.2. It only becomes version 2 once it's published. So you can have like a rolling draft. So I'm going to switch that on. You can set time limits on versions. So the default setting is there is no time limit. Versions won't be deleted depending on how old they are. You can set automatic version control. So you can specify that versions will be automatically deleted over time based on things like the activity and how long ago the file was created. So you could set, for example, that versions are deleted 12 months after the creation date, or you can set it based on things like on activity. So has this file been accessed in the last year, 18 months, 2 years? Or you can specify that it's manual and they're deleted when they exceed a set number of days. I'm going to leave this as no time limit. We've then got the option for, because we're using major and minor versions, how many major versions do we want to keep? Now, if we're just using major versions, and I'll turn this off, it will, by default, it will keep 500 versions. So, but I'm going to use, I want to create, I'm going to say, I want to create major and minor versions, and I'm going to say, I want 100 major versions. And do you want to keep drafts for major versions? So, and I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say I want to keep drafts for the last 10 major versions. You could set it to be the same. Then we've got options. Who should see the drafts in the document library? So the default setting is anybody who can read items. We could set it to say only people who can edit them, or there's the option to say only users who can approve items and the original author. So with this, I'll just switch my approval back on. So with this setting, this is ideal for things like policies, that you can have a policy that's going through a draft revision. The only people that see it are the people who are going to approve it, who are generally owners of the site, and the person who's got permission to author it. So it gives you the option of, you can work on a document for however long you need to. Other people who access that folder won't see that rolling version until you're ready to publish it. They will then see it. Final one within here. Do you require documents to be checked out before they can be edited? Default setting is no. Depending on the content, if I select yes, it makes files the same as they are in a standard network share. If somebody opens it, it checks it out and it locks it to that person. So I'm going to leave this as no, because I want people to be able to collaborate on files. So just as a quick recap, I've got the option to say, do I want to have an approval process? So somebody needs to approve a document when it's been edited or when a new document's been created. Do I want to use version control? So am I using just major versions, or do I want minor draft versions? I'm not going to set a time limit on versions. I want to keep 100 major versions, and I'm going to keep drafts of those for the last 10 major versions. And I'm going to say that only users who can approve items and the original author will see it until it's been approved and published. And I don't want documents being checked out before they can be edited. I want people to be able to collaborate on them. So I can click OK. And if I go back to my documents, and I'll go in general in my Excel files, I'll open up this one called absolute references. So within here, I'm just going to make a change. And I can close this tab. When I go into the three little dots, so I can open it, I can preview it, etc. Down towards the bottom, there is more, and there's an option to say, I want to submit this change for approval. So I'll submit it. Because I'm the owner, I've submitted it for approval and I have approved it. So it's now set at pending. I go down to more. I can approve or reject this change. I can cancel the approval because I submitted it. If I approve or reject, I can say this is approved. I could spell approved, and I can put a comment in here. Similarly, if I rejected it, it goes back to the creator. It's only visible to those people who created it and me as an approver, but I could give them a comment as to say why I'm rejecting it. In this case, I'm going to approve it. It's now approved. Everybody who's got access to this folder will now see that change. So just to show you what I did again, I open this and I'll make a change. Just let it save. Once it's saved, I'll be able to close it. I think it's just been a little bit slow. It was. So that's now saved. I go into more. Oops, into more. Submit for approval. I can put comments as to what I've changed in here. Change comments. I'll publish it. As the approver, I can go in. I can approve or reject it. I can say that's okay. That version now becomes visible to everybody. Now, this is at version 3. I go into the 3 dots. I have got the option that I can look at the version history. So if I go into the history, it tells me from version 1 when it was created. This version never expires, who modified it, what the file size was. And if I hover over this, I can click on the little drop down. I can view this version. I can restore it, or I can delete it. Now, if I restore this version, this will then become version 4 once it's been approved. So even if I restore this to the most recent version, it doesn't delete version 3. It would make this a new version of this file. So at any point in my file's history, I can go in the version history. I can see everything that's happened to this particular file, when it happened and who did it. So, and it will show me this went through 2.1 as a draft, then it was approved, it became version 3. Okay. As I say, you don't have to use version control. You can turn it off. If you're working on files that, well, I'm going in and editing this file 10 times a week, version control might not be relevant to you because you quickly rack up hundreds and hundreds of versions. On the other hand, if it's something that's only going to be changed periodically, it's a really powerful feature that you've got full audit history of everything that's happened with that particular file. So the other thing that we've got is for tagging files with something called enterprise keywords. So this is, in this case, I've got this enterprise keywords column, and my file called absolute references has got a keyword of calculations. So you can use these with, for example, searching, or you can assign them just as a category. So as well as being able to have them in a folder, you can assign keywords to them. So for example, this is under calculations. If I wanted to add a keyword, I'll go into the 3 dots for a file. If I go down to details, it opens up this details pane over on the right. So it gives me a little preview of it, tells me who's got access to it, what its name is. I can change the name as well in here. A title, I can set a review duration if I wanted to. It's a review date, and my enterprise keywords. So with this, I'm going to say this is also calculations. So it's picked up calculations from my keywords. And it's saved it. To put it into draft, I'm going to go and submit this for approval. And I will approve it. This approval process can be automated as well with SharePoint. So rather than owners of documents having to come into a folder and check this approval status column for, is there anything I need to review? It can be set to be automated and even set to send them an email to say, there's a new document that requires your approval. These keywords, as I say, you can use them to tag your documents with an additional key name. There is the option that you can search on them. Only thing to note is it does take up to 24 hours for these to synchronize. So I've just added these two. If I went to search it, I wouldn't be able to search on calculations. If I come back this time tomorrow, I would. Okay. Uploading and downloading files is as simple as I select the file that I want and I can download it. I can download it from the cloud and save a copy on my desktop, for example. If I was going to be going out of the office and I'm going to be working somewhere where I've not got Wi-Fi, I could download a copy onto my desktop or into a folder. If I want to upload files from here, so for example, if I've received a file attached to an email and I've just saved it onto my desktop and I want to upload it into this folder, if I go to new, I can create new folders, I can create documents, I can edit the menu. So this will let me create additional documents, links. I can even drag and drop. So if I've got a file on my desktop, I could drag it and drop it into this folder. Because I've got the approvals set on here, it would need me to go in, review it, and approve it before everybody else sees it. If you want to share files from within SharePoint, again, I'll just use this one called named. So if I select it, sharing, there are multiple different ways because it's Microsoft. There's the little share icon on the just at the right of the actual file. There's a share link up at the top. And if I go into the three little dots, there's also a share link from there. They all do exactly the same thing. So if I go to share, so with sharing, I can add a name, a group, or an email. So in this case, I'm going to pick Rita, who's our head of HR. And I could add more people and share it with multiple people. On this right-hand side, though, the default setting for my share, for sharing this with Rita, is Rita can view it. She won't be able to edit it, but she can look at it. I could say, I want to collaborate with this. I'm going to give you edit permissions on it. Or there's the option that I can say, you can view it, but you can't download your own copy. Because it could be, I just want to share this for information. So I could specify, Rita will get a link to open this document. She won't be able to edit it and she won't be able to download her own copy of it. And I can add whatever message that I want to send. The other option is I've got this copy link that I could copy it and paste it into a standard email. Now, depending on your SharePoint site, security settings will depend on whether it will let you share things with external people. So certainly at Quiss, our SharePoint sites are normally set up as you cannot share documents with external people. You would need to attach a copy of it and send it. So with sharing, if I go in these link settings in the little cog, so the default setting is people within my organization, and they need a Quiss Technology account. They need to be logged in with their Quiss account to be able to view this document. I could specify it's only people who've currently got access, or it's specific people that I choose, which is what I'd done. So again, I've got the settings. Can they view it? Can they edit it? They can view it, but they can't download it. The other option I get is I can set an expiry date for their access. Because it's going to send them a link to it, I can set, for example, this link is going to expire on Friday next week. So if at the beginning of December, Rita clicked the link, it would just say her access to this file has expired and she can no longer access it. If you do set up a SharePoint site for being able to share things with people externally, you can set an expiration date as a default. Some customers that we've set this up for, where they're sharing files with external agencies, they very often set it up to say, these people are going to have 7 days access to this file, then the link is going to expire. And very often it's also set to say they can't download it, because although I want them to see the information, I don't want them to be able to make any changes to it. So it links back to that file security. But there is, as I say, there is the option to say people can't share things with anybody externally from this. It's all completely secure. It's only people with a Quiss Technology account who can even access any of this, or I can share it with. So where I'd mentioned collaborative working, so this pivot table file edited 31 minutes ago. So I'm going to open this up. And if I go onto the if I just click onto the name of it, it will open it. If I hover over it, it tells me there's 36 views. Activity highlights, it tells me that Rebecca edited this 38 minutes ago. There's some conversations from Teams. So I'm going to select this, go to the 3 dots. I'm going to go to open, and I'm not going to open it in the browser. I'm going to open it in the app. And these can be configured as well to say files from this site are always opened in the app and not in the browser. So Word documents open in Word, Excel spreadsheets open in Excel, etc. I'm just going to open this up. So opens up in Excel. Up in the top right, it tells me Rebecca Whale is here. On the actual workbook, it even tells me which cells Rebecca has clicked on. Rebecca will see that James Smith is here, and as I click on different cells, Rebecca would see a little highlight with a JS indicating this is the cell that James has currently clicked on. Assuming that autosave is switched on, if either of us make a change, it's saved automatically and we will both see it almost in real time. That there is a little bit of a lag of a few seconds, but effectively we both see the changes in real time. Exactly the same for Word documents. So if you've got Word documents, they're stored within SharePoint, multiple people can have them open at the same time and work in different parts of the document. Or it could be, if you're on a call with somebody, you can both be in a document and you can see the changes being made in real time. Okay, I can close this. Other things that we've got, searching in SharePoint is just simply, we've got a search box at the top and it's permanently displayed. So this is going to search in this library. So wherever I am, although I'm in this general folder, if I go back up to documents, it's still going to search this whole library, not just the folder that I'm looking at. So if I look for search is instant, if I type in the word pivot, it's found 2 files, one that Rebecca edited 40 minutes ago, one that I modified over a year ago. Let's look for something else. So if I look for the word name, it's found a file called named. Form replies contains name. So does Excel collaboration, event responses, auto text. So these others, although the file isn't called name, it does contain that text and it will tell you who modified it and when. So searching is very, very powerful because it will search for any type of document. So it'll search for any type of file anywhere in the entire library. Okay. And then we'll have a look at, so searching, automation rules and notifications. So I'm going to go into my general and I'll use this Excel files folder again. So within here, on my links up at the top, I can upload files. If I click on the little drop down, I could upload an entire folder of files if I wanted to. But over on the right hand side, under the three dots, I've got options in here that I can say, I want to set up an alert. So if I set an alert me, in a few seconds, it will open me. So the alert title is going to be called Documents Excel Files. I could rename it anything that I wanted. Who is it going to send alerts to? Because I'm setting it up, it's going to send them to me. I could set it to say, actually, I want it to alert me and Sabrina Griffin, who's another member of this SharePoint site. What delivery method do I want? I want an email, and it's going to email this email address. So I'll just remove Sabrina because she will wonder why on earth she's getting notifications. Then I've got what change type do I want? So the default setting is if anything changes, I want to know about it. It could be I want to know if any items have been added. So somebody creates a new file or uploads a file into here, I want to know about it. I could specify, I want to know if somebody comes into here and modifies a document, or alternatively, I could specify, actually, I'm only interested if somebody comes in and deletes something, I want to be notified. So if I set it to say, if anything changes, I want to be notified. Then I've got options within here. Send me an alert when anything changes, more common when someone else changes a document, or it could be when somebody else changes a document that was created by me, or somebody changes a document that was last modified by me. So with these, you probably would go with, chances are it could well be one of these bottom two would be the most common ones of, I've created a document and I've stored it into here. I want to know if somebody else goes in and changes it. So I can select this, and then when do I get the alerts? So do I want to know straight away? Do I want it to send me one at, maybe not at 5 a.m.? Do I want an email at 5 p.m. every day with a summary of what's changed? Or alternatively, do I want an email every Friday at, let's say, at 4 p.m.? So depending on how much work's going on within this folder would depend on what settings I would want it to send me. Probably the most commonly used ones are, I either want a daily or a weekly summary. If they are highly sensitive documents, you may want to set it to say, I need to be notified straight away. If somebody comes and changes, for example, a policy document within this folder, I want to know straight away that something's been changed and who made that change. Okay, so I can set my alerts. Now, if I go back into that three little dots, I can go in and manage my alerts. So now I've set one up. So I've then got my alert. So I've also got one for documents in project A. So if I choose my documents in Excel files, I can select it, I can open it up, and I can amend anything that I want about it. I've even got the option to say, I don't want this alert anymore, and I'll delete it. Let's just go back out of my alerts. So under the three little dots, an alert me, I can set up to say, I want to be notified if somebody makes a change to anything in this folder, or somebody adds something, somebody deletes something. And as you can see, you can set it on an individual folder. You could set it on the entire library. You probably would get an awful lot of alerts. But if you've got a folder with sensitive files within there, you can set up an alert so that you know when things get changed or things are added. File approval workflows. If I go to automate, so it's in the same place, 3 little dots, into automate, I can create a rule that, for example, file or metadata is modified, a file is added, a file is deleted. So I'm going to say if a file is added, I want it to send an email to me. I can create my rule. So because I'm the owner and I need to approve documents within here, whenever a new file is created, it will send a notification to me to say there's a new file in there. Tells me I need to go in and review it and approve it. And currently this is switched on. Okay, but as I say, with a 365 application called Power Automate, you can create much more elaborate approval workflows as well. Okay, so we'll have a look at syncing SharePoint to File Explorer. Now, this can be done on a single folder or on the entire library. It depends on what you want to synchronize. But this is, I want to be able to access all of this data from my Windows File Explorer. I don't want to have to log into Microsoft 365 and come to SharePoint to get to it. So very straightforward to set up. Browse to either the document library or the folder that you want to synchronize. And you just simply click Sync on the tools up at the top. So it tells me it's synchronizing them, and I can close this window. So in the background, it's synchronizing all of these folders, the files within them, into my Windows File Explorer. Probably doesn't show up brilliantly, but down in the corner where the little cloud and the little circular arrow has now disappeared to tell me it's finished synchronizing. So it does it quickly. So if I go to File Explorer, and within my File Explorer, under Quiss Technology, so up at the top I've got my OneDrive, then under Quiss Technology, my Quiss Demo Team documents. So this is what it's just synchronized. I've also got Quiss Digital Academy documents and the webinars documents. So I've got a couple of different SharePoint sites already synced, but this is the one that I've just synchronized. So synchronized everything across. And at the moment, it's telling me these are only available in the cloud. But I can browse through them. And I can then go through these files exactly as I would in a standard folder structure. I just double click the folder, it'll open the folder. I can browse back up through the different levels. So browsing is now exactly the same. Now, there is one thing to be aware of, and this may seem like an obvious thing to say, but if I delete something from here, the synchronized deletes back up to SharePoint as well. So if I delete this file called named from here, it will delete it from SharePoint as well. It's just a cautionary thing of, we did once have a customer synchronize their files and then decided, I don't need this on my laptop anymore, and they deleted a folder, not realizing that they'd just deleted that folder from the SharePoint site and everybody lost access to it. I just double click, I can open this up. I can open it up, I can make my changes, I would save it as I go along, close it once I've finished. Now, this is, when I opened it, this status icon has changed. So its current availability is it's available on this device. what that is telling me is there is a temporary copy of this file stored physically on my laptop. The one with the little cloud is this file is only available when I'm online. If I go to my pivot table file, so under a right click, I can open it. I've got my share options. So just like within SharePoint, I can share it from here. I can favorite it. I've also got an option to say, I always want to keep it on this device. And I can do this for a single file or a folder. This, I have now got my own permanent copy of this file on my laptop. So if for any reason I lost access to, I lost Wi-Fi, doesn't matter. I've got my own local copy. I can open it and I can edit it. I can save it. As soon as I get back online, it will synchronize my changes back up to SharePoint automatically. The only thing to be aware of is if you do this with a lot of files, let's go to General. Actually, I did it with General and said, actually, I want to keep everything in this folder permanently on my device. It is taking up storage space on my laptop. So if I'd set this for all of this and I'd got a few hundred or perhaps a couple of gigabytes of data, if I say I want all of that available on my device, it is going to take up a big chunk of the storage on my laptop. Again, don't delete it. Under the right click, there is an option to say, I want to free up some space, which will refresh. It just removes the local copy. I've now just got my cloud-based one that I can access as long as I am online. If you decided, actually, I don't want this synchronized, down in the system tray, where I've got my little cloud, if I click it, it will show me files that have been worked on recently, things that have refreshed. Under settings up in the top right corner, and I can pause synchronizing, but if I go into settings, in here, I can then see my KISS demo team document. It's taking up 0 kilobytes on my laptop because I did that free up space. My KISS Digital Academy webinars, 18 meg. KISS Digital Academy documents, 448 megabytes. And my OneDrive is using just over 4 gigabytes because I've got a whole raft of documents on there permanently available. But if I wanted to say, actually, I don't want KISS demo team documents, you can come into here and you can stop the synchronization. It'll prompt you to say, are you sure? I can close this. This would refresh. These are no longer available on there's no synchronization. Because they're only available online, I've removed them from my laptop. So I would need to go back into SharePoint and I would need to resynchronize them. So the main one to be aware of with this is when you open a document, it creates a temporary local copy. There is the option, let's go to for example, this, there is the option to say, always keep a copy of this on my device. In which case you've got a permanent local copy of that particular file or everything in that a particular folder. Okay, so syncing to File Explorer, and then the final part is the difference between a team site and a communication site. So let's just minimize this. So I'm in a team site, so this KISS demo team, and there is a team site on the front end of this. So when you create a new SharePoint site, it will ask you, do you want a team site or do you want a communication site? If you create a team site, it will also create you a Microsoft team to go on at the front end for your chat and you're creating channels, meetings, etc. If you create something called a communication site, this is slightly different. So team site is for a team of people or even an entire organization working together, sharing files, collaborating. A communication site, while it can store documents, I'll show you an example of a communication site. And I'm going to go to the Quiss intranet. So this is an example of a communication site where I'm using this to share information with everybody else within the business. So my communication site, I can post news articles. I can share documents, but the majority of this is I'm sharing news. I'm sharing information. It's not so much a working SharePoint site for storing all of our data. This is more, I don't want to send all staff emails. We've got an intranet. I can post information about what's going on around the business in my communication site. Okay. That's more or less an introduction to SharePoint. A lot of the things that I've mentioned would be configured when you set up the site and deciding on things like permissions for securities, etc. But it's a very powerful tool, especially with things around being able to share files and control what people can and can't do with them, the whole version control, having an automation, approval processes to say that you can control whether things do get published into folders, etc. I know there were a couple of questions that came in just before the session.
Yeah, hi James. I'll pop on now, so hopefully this will help you as well. And I think some of these you may have touched on a little bit as we went along, but one question was, how do you ensure legal compliancy with SharePoint?
So this we'd mentioned around permissions as to who's got access to what. Is it read only? Can they edit it? There is also something called data sensitivity labels and something called data loss prevention policies. Now, if I just open up a Word document, just drop this over here so that you can see it. So within here, you can set up sensitivity settings. So general, confidential, highly confidential. So these would link to your SharePoint folders and libraries. So for example, we've got confidential. It's confidential, but all employees can access it. Confidential, anybody, it's not protected. Highly confidential, it's all employees. But it depends whether or not they can edit it, they can look at it. These can also be set to say, if I've applied, for example, the confidential sensitivity label to this document, this can then go with the document to say this document is never allowed to leave our tenant. So it won't allow somebody to attach it to an email. It won't allow them to share it, even if it's in a site with external sharing. You can use these, and you're not limited to general, confidential, highly confidential. You can create as many as you want. But the most simple one is through permissions. Who can access what? Do we allow it for external sharing? Or you can take it that additional level to say, for example, our data loss prevention policy is if it's confidential, this document can never leave our organization. And people need specific permissions to see it. So it could be only directors have got access to this document.
Lovely, thank you. Just a question from me. You know, some of the things you were looking at looked like very internal things. So but talking about external, is it possible to set up SharePoint with external members? So I don't know, say if you're working on a client matter or a third
Yes,
party you wanted to work on the same document, that is possible.
it is. Yes. Actually, I can quickly show you an example. Just sign in. So our Quiss Digital Academy, this SharePoint site, let's just go into just so that we can see. So within here, there's a whole raft of training materials. This is shared with a whole host of our customers. So the whole site is designed to be, but again, you can control who's got access. So in this case, within the training team, we can do what we like. Our external customers have got read-only access, but you can say, actually, I want to collaborate on documents with them. So you can have, they can have edit access as well. It all depends on what level that you want. But we have done it, we've set up a few external sharing for certainly for legal customers who want to share files either with clients or external agencies, but they want to do it in a secure manner. So that's where things like those expiry links to say, I'm sharing this with you, I'm only going to give you 30 days access, and then I'm removing it.
Fantastic, that's great. Lovely, thank you very much indeed. And when you're doing that, do you have to be careful about sort of checking about their sort of IT policies and their sort of IT security, or because obviously they're sharing something with you, or is there kind of a firewall, which means that if they're not quite so careful about their security, it doesn't affect your security?
Yeah, it's very much you would give their effectively an individual person, you would say you've got read-only access. So it would give that one person read-only access. You can also set it up that they need to use multi-factor authentication to connect in and view your documents. But yeah, it is a very secure of whatever level of access, it's only to that one portion. You're not opening up access to their entire sort of IT infrastructure.
Wonderful, thank you very much indeed. Another question that came in from Lily, who's on the call. With versioning settings, can you set it so that it only applies to a certain folder, or does it have to apply to the whole library? And how do we set an alert for an email to be sent to the file owner when a change is waiting to be approved? I think you may have touched on that subsequently, but if there's anything else there you want to pick up on.
Yes, so with version control, you can set it on an individual folder. You can set it on the library, but you can set on an individual folder that alert system and set to say, I want an alert sent to somebody when somebody creates a file and it needs to be approved. For the versioning for the rest of it, you can just say, yeah, just clock up the versions and we can use it if we need to roll one back. But on an individual folder, you can specify if somebody creates something in this folder, I want an email to go to this person because they need to know about it and go in and approve it before it's visible to everyone else.
Great, thank you. Just a couple of very quick ones. If you've got any last minute, oh yes, another one just coming in, last minute one. How many SharePoint licenses are required in order to use these facilities? Is it set up on an organizational basis, or does each individual participant require it?
So with SharePoint, it forms part of your user license. So it would effectively, your organization would have SharePoint. Everybody who's got a 365 license can use it. And it's essentially, it's a case of, do you make people owners, members, visitors? Very often it's generally the sort of, there's a handful of people who are owners who can create and control the sites. Everybody who's got a license within your organization can then access it and use it.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Tony. Let us know if there's anything else you want on that. Can you be logged into several different SharePoint accounts at the same time? I think probably yes, from what you were looking at.
You can. It's a little bit tricky in that just up in the top right, I'm logged in as James Smith. Now, if I go into here, it will let me sign in with another account, but it would sign me out of this one. So you can have multiple accounts. The default setting is I'd need to sign out of this one and sign in with another one. There is a bit of a workaround though, and that is in your browser, I've opened up a new in private window. In my in private window, I've signed in with my Bob HR dummy demo account. So within a single browser window, you can only be signed in with one account, but there is the workaround of, well, actually, I need to be in two different accounts. If you open a private window, that will let you sign in with a different account.
Ah, sneaky. I like that. Fantastic. I think other than that, there was a final question. Again, I think you mentioned some of it, but it's timescales and tips for retention, whether there are any default periods.
Yes. So with retention, where we touched on it with versions to say that versions over X number of days are deleted. You can also set retention on files within folders to say files, once they get to a certain age, for example, things like GDPR, you can set in SharePoint to say files over 5 years old in this folder will automatically be purged. But it's all completely configurable. An important one to note is if you delete something from SharePoint, it goes into a recycle bin. The default setting is it will stay in that recycle bin for 93 days, then it will automatically be permanently deleted. So if you wanted something more robust, you would need to set up and configure a sort of a more permanent backup solution. But it's just that thing to be aware of. Goes in recycle bin for 93 days. The default setting is SharePoint will then automatically delete it if you don't recover it back again.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I think that covers all the questions that we had in and the ones in the Q&A as well. So, James, perfect timing, just a couple of minutes past 2 o'clock. But just thank you very much. That was very thorough, and I've certainly learned a great deal as well. And I think, there are some things that we want to do at Bristol Law Society, which I think we'll definitely be able to use these skills that we've learned today.
Excellent.
So all of you who've been here today, thank you very much for attending. We will send you a copy of this in the next day or two. So it'll also then go on our website. So please feel free to share it with people in your team if you found it useful. There'll be a feedback form that follows this. So again, please let us know what you thought about the session, whether there's anything more you want, whether it's on this particular subject or others. We're working with Quiss generally and putting on more webinars in the new year. So feedback really, really helpful. And again, if you want any more, any broader advice on any of your IT stack, then by all means, get in touch with Quiss. You'll find all of their details on our website under the supporters tab as well. So there's a lot of expertise that they have, and they're very happy to talk to you all. So unless there's any final words from you, James, I think we'll let people go about their business.
No, that's everything. Thank you all very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.